My name is Kevin. So I was a student missionary in Pucallpa, Peru
Okay.
at Amor Projects. So when I went to college, I went to a pretty small high school, and it's Heritage Academy, and had a big emphasis on missions. So, but I didn't really feel. I went to Southern Adventist University to do the SALT program, and while I was there, a friend of mine actually just came to the church that we're working with, and he sat with me for lunch, and so for potluck, and so he was talking to me about his experience there, because he was there a couple years before, like he had just come back from there, and at the time I was listening to his stories, and he was telling me all kinds of crazy stories about, driving the van through the mud and it getting stuck like really late at night and having to push it out and whatnot. I'm like, that's really cool, but I don't know if I'm really called to that at the moment. But every time I would see him, like for that whole year, he'd ever tell me another story and another story. And about the time when it was time to put in your application to go as a student missionary, he was like, hey, it's about time to put in your application, you should do it. And so I thought about it, and I was like, well, I don't know, we'll see how it goes. I'm pre-med, and I don't know if that'll really fit in my schedule with like my whole like cycle and whatnot. And so I didn't want to waste time, but he said, just think about it, pray about it. I said, okay, sure, I will. And about that time, the student missions director at Southern had a Vespers, and he shared some really powerful testimonies. And after that, I decided I'm going to put in my application, and if it was God's will for me to go, then He would make it happen. If not, then I was okay with that. So, to be honest, I was like, well, God, if it works, then sure, I'll go. If not, I'm totally okay with it. Maybe I was a little bit nervous, but I really love adventure, and so I was excited at the same time. It really didn't start to become real for me until we were driving to the airport, because my whole family got in the van with us and with me and took me down to Atlanta to fly out, and on the way there it was like, okay, yeah, this is really happening, and my life is going to be changed forever.
Y decir feliz sábado. ¡Feliz sábado! Otra vez. 1, 2, 3. ¡Feliz sábado! Amén.
Oh man, we land, and it's really hot because it's the jungle in Peru. It's a pretty big city, but it's like they had us do like a little like research paper on like the location we were going to, so we knew what was gonna what to expect. So, but once we landed, I could not prepare myself for what I saw. Like, first of all, like just the roads and like how people drive there was completely different than what I was expecting. And they have these things called motor cars, which are like rickshaws, and they were just like weaving in and out of traffic everywhere, and like no one was following the lines on the road. And it was pretty crazy. And like I remember taking videos, like, wow, this is so crazy. And then after living there for like 11 months, I look back at those videos, I'm like, wow, I was such naive person back then. So yeah, it was pretty awesome. It was quite the experience. They have a lot of different like traditions. Like they eat like fruit cakes, like panetone is what they call it, and like hot chocolate, and they have lots of like parties and stuff that we all went to. And I actually went on a trip during Christmas though, and I was in kind of like more of the interior of the jungle, with some friends, and we were doing an evangelistic series down there, and so it was really interesting just to see the whole like a new area as well.
Pero necesitas tus tiempos y poco abierto, ¿no?
Yeah, so first of all, I went with a group, and there was about there was 11 of us there in my group. So a lot of us were there for the same thing. My position was a medical Bible worker. Whenever we would have our physician there, I would help in the medical clinics. But when he wasn't there, or she, we would do work with the church and with our Bible worker, and we'd go door to door doing Bible studies in the community or working with the church and stuff like that. But trying to find my niche, something that, like, God, why did you send me here personally? That was kind of difficult because other people were here doing the same thing, and they were just as capable as I was. But over time, I was able to, find my talents or use whatever talents God gave me down there, and that was really, really good after that. Another struggle was learning Spanish because I took Spanish in high school, but it didn't mean I know any Spanish really. But by God's grace, after about 3 months, I was pretty much knew Spanish, and after that was just kind of refining it. I could have a normal conversation with somebody, and like towards the end of my time there, they asked me to do evangelistic series and stuff. So I mean, they might have had to help me every once in a while with some words, but and I didn't even open up a Spanish book while I was there. We had a local lady kind of helping us with Spanish, but it was more of like a class on the culture there, but it was really good. And it took a while to really figure out for me, like, why did God send me personally there? But after a while, like doing different tasks, I was able to figure out which things like that I really enjoy doing and that someone else couldn't do or whatnot. So my biggest triumph, I would say, was something that I didn't expect. So I was there to do medical work or Bible working or whatnot, and when the church that I was working with, some of the young people wanted me to do English class. They wanted to learn English, and so they have like the class to go out as a student missionary, and part of the thing that they teach is like how to make lesson plans and do teaching, because a lot of students from Southern go out as teachers. But I was doing medical. I didn't really really pay attention too much to that part, and here they are asking me to teach a class. But thankfully, one of my other friends there, his name was Scott. He helped me out, and we pretty much did the class together. And so a lot of the kids that came, they were just kids from the community. They weren't really part of the church, or maybe friends of friends. And so, but we had like a wide age range from kindergarten all the way to high school. I'm like, what are we going to teach these kids that like they could all learn something? But God worked it all out for good. Like, we sang songs in English and taught them that, and did simple things like household items, like just to help them with vocabulary, like sentence structure, and something that the older kids can gain value from, and the younger kids as well. So, and it was an adventure. Like, some days we didn't have electricity, so we would do the class by candlelight and stuff like that. And so it was really, really fun. But it was an adventure, and our Bible work would also do like a little Bible study with them beforehand, so they can also get some spiritual stuff from it as well. And the biggest triumph from that was I didn't realize what kind of impact I was having on those kids, because after a couple months of that, we had an evangelistic series, and we invited them to come to that, and a number of them decided to give their life to Jesus, and some of them got baptized as well. And I never thought that something as simple as an English class could have that big of an impact on these kids. But just showing them that you cared for them and that you had their well-being in mind, and that you wanted to be their friend too was, made so much more of a difference than, if I was just there, bandaging their wounds or whatnot. Well, I think before that, my life was pretty well set into missions, but it was definitely reinforced through this trip because I wasn't really sure. I'm planning on becoming a physician, and before that, I wasn't really sure if that was something that God was calling me to do. And so this trip really reinforced that for me and helped me to see how we can use medicine as the right hand of the gospel, and also just, friendship evangelism and how taking an interest in somebody, how that can make such an influence for them in their life. So by God's grace, I can maybe be a full-time missionary when I become a physician, or maybe do trips back and forth. I'm hoping to go back to Peru soon. I went back once since I was a student missionary as well, and we actually did a canvassing program with the young people there, and that was really fun. And a lot of those kids were the ones from my English class too, so it was really special. So we got to see them, learn about Christ, and then, work for Christ as well when we're in the canvassing program. So God can use you anywhere, and I never thought that God can use me to such an extent as He did. We even built a church while I was there through fundraising that I was able to do through the church back at home. And I didn't think that God can do so much, but it's really just as long as you have a willing heart, God can use that and He'll run with it, and He can do such incredible things that you won't even realize or imagine. So, just trust Him and He will lead you, and you can do so much more things that you ever know.